Captain Lee Dong-min watched the morning sun rise over New Busan Colony through the bridge windows of his patrol ship. The sight never got old. 3 years ago, this planet had been nothing but rock and dust. Now green fields stretched as far as he could see. Farmers were already working in those fields, tending to crops that would feed millions of people across 3 star systems. "Beautiful morning, Captain," said his co-pilot, Lieutenant Nam Ji-woo. She was young, fresh from Earth's Naval Academy and still amazed by everything she saw out here on the frontier. "Every morning is beautiful here," Lee replied. He meant it. After 20 years of military service, most of it spent on cold metal ships between the stars, New Busan felt like paradise. Down on the planet's surface, Park Sora was starting her day as colony administrator. She stood on the balcony of the government building, drinking her morning coffee and watching the city wake up. 2.5 million people called New Busan home now. They had built something amazing here. Her assistant, Choi Mi-young, joined her on the balcony with a tablet full of reports. "The harvest projections are excellent this quarter," Mi-young said. "We're producing 30% more grain than expected. The Veltar traders are already asking to increase their orders." Sora smiled. The Veltar were good neighbors. Their blue-skinned diplomats had been nothing but friendly since first contact 5 years ago. They traded rare metals for human food and both species benefited. "What about the Ashkari?" she asked. "They want to establish a permanent trading post here," Mi-young replied. "Their crystal ships are so beautiful. The children love watching them land." In the agricultural district, Kim Tae-ho was already knee-deep in his work. As chief agricultural engineer, he was responsible for making sure the crops grew properly in New Busan's soil. It had taken 3 years of careful genetic modification and soil treatment, but now they had something special. Earth crops grew side by side with native plants, creating a unique ecosystem that was better than either world could produce alone. "The wheat in Sector 7 is ready for harvest," his assistant told him. "The new strain is producing twice what we expected." Tae-ho nodded, making notes on his tablet. Every success here meant fewer hungry people throughout human space. New Busan wasn't just a colony, it was humanity's breadbasket among the stars. At the elementary school in the residential district, 12-year-old Yoon Jae-sung was getting ready for another day of classes. He had been born here on New Busan, one of the first generation of true colonists. To him, this world wasn't a miracle of human engineering. It was simply home. "Today we're learning about Earth's oceans," his teacher, Ms. Lee Yoon-hee, announced to the class. "Can anyone tell me how Earth's oceans are different from our lakes?" Jae-sung raised his hand. "Earth's oceans are salty, and they're so big you can't see the other side. Our lakes are freshwater and you can walk around them in a day." "Very good, Jae-sung. And why don't we have oceans on New Busan?" "Because the terraforming engineers decided lakes were easier to manage," another student answered. "And because we needed the land for farming," Ms. Lee smiled. These children understood their world in ways that amazed her. They took for granted things that still seemed like miracles to adults who remembered the early days. Back in orbit, Captain Lee was completing his routine patrol of the outer system. His ship, the Soul's Pride, was small but well-armed. It wasn't designed to fight a real war. New Busan had never needed that kind of protection. The galaxy was peaceful, at least in this corner of it. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," Lieutenant Nam reported. "Multiple contacts moving in formation." Lee frowned and moved to the sensor station. "How many contacts?" 12. No, 15 ships. They're big, Captain. Much bigger than anything we've seen before." "Are they Veltar or Ashkari?" Nam shook her head. "Negative, sir. These ships don't match any known design. They're using some kind of propulsion system I've never seen before." Lee felt a cold weight in his stomach. In 20 years of service, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something was wrong. "What's their heading?" "Direct course for New Busan, sir. They'll be in communication range in 6 hours. Try to raise them on all frequencies," Lee ordered. Standard first contact protocols. For the next hour, they tried every method of communication they knew. Radio, laser, quantum entanglement, even basic mathematical sequences. The unknown ships maintained their course and speed, but they didn't respond. Down on the planet, life continued as normal. Children played in parks filled with flowers from a dozen different worlds. Farmers harvested crops that would feed families they would never meet. Scientists worked on new projects to make life even better for future generations. Artists painted pictures of their beautiful world. Musicians played songs that mixed Earth melodies with alien harmonies learned from their trading partners. Nobody knew that death was coming. At the communication center, Choi Mi-young was updating the daily reports to send to Earth. Trade figures, population growth, weather patterns, cultural events, all the details that helped Earth understand how well the colony was doing. She was proud of these reports. They told the story of humanity's greatest success among the stars. "Ma'am," her assistant called out, "we're getting a priority signal from Captain Lee's ship." Mi-young looked up from her work. Priority signals were rare. "Put it through." Lee's voice crackled over the speakers. "New Busan Control, this is Seoul's Pride. We have 15 unknown vessels approaching the system. They're not responding to any communication attempts. Request permission to investigate." "Permission granted, Captain," Mi-young replied, but she felt worried. Unknown ships weren't necessarily dangerous, but they weren't normal either. In the agricultural zones, Taiho was showing a group of visiting scientists from Earth how the hybrid crops worked. "The key is balance," he explained. "We don't fight the planet's natural systems. We work with them. The native fungi help our Earth plants grow, and our plants provide nutrients the native ecosystem needs." One of the Earth scientists nodded appreciatively. "It's remarkable what you've accomplished here. This could be a model for colonies throughout human space." Taiho smiled with pride. 3 years of hard work had created something that would help humanity expand to new worlds for generations to come. As the day progressed, Captain Lee continued trying to contact the unknown ships. They were larger than anything in the human fleet, and their technology seemed advanced. But they maintained perfect formation and perfect silence. "Captain," Nam said quietly, "what if they're hostile?" Lee had been wondering the same thing. "Then we follow protocol. We warn the colony and call for backup from Earth. But let's not assume the worst yet. Maybe they just have different communication methods." But deep down, Lee's military instincts were screaming warnings. Ships that approached in perfect military formation and refused all communication were not peaceful traders. They were something else entirely. As New Busan's sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in colors that Earth had never seen, the unknown fleet continued its approach. Soon, humanity would learn that they were not alone in the galaxy in ways they had never imagined. The last peaceful day in New Busan's history was ending. The attack began without warning at 0600 hours New Busan time. Captain Lee Dong-min was drinking his morning coffee when the first energy beam cut through his ship's hull. The Seoul's Pride shook violently, throwing him against the bulkhead. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the small vessel. "What happened?" he shouted, pulling himself back to his feet. Lieutenant Nam Ji-woo was already at her station, her face pale with shock. "Direct hit, Captain." "Unknown weapon type. Hull breach on decks 2 and 3. We're losing atmosphere." Through the bridge windows, Lee could see the alien fleet. 15 massive ships, each one easily 10 times the size of his patrol vessel. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, with strange angular designs that hurt to look at. They moved with perfect coordination, like wolves surrounding prey. "Get me a channel to New Busan Control," Lee ordered. "Emergency frequency." The communication system crackled to life. "New Busan Control, this is Seoul's Pride. We are under attack. Unknown vessels are hostile. Repeat, we are under attack." Choi Mi-young's voice came back immediately. "Seoul's Pride, this is Control. What is your status?" Another energy beam struck the ship. This time the bridge lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Lee could smell smoke and burning electronics. "We're hit bad," Lee reported. "Multiple hull breaches. These ships are armed with weapons I've never seen before. Warn the colony. Get everyone to the shelters." Down on the planet's surface, Colony Administrator Park Sora was already in the emergency command center. The building's blast doors had sealed automatically when the attack alert came in. She stood before a wall of screens showing the situation in orbit. "How many ships?" she asked her military advisor, Colonel Bae Hyun-woo. 15 confirmed, Bae replied grimly. "They're not responding to any communication attempts. Captain Lee's ship is badly damaged." Sora felt sick. This was supposed to be a peaceful colony. They had defensive platforms in orbit, but they were designed to handle pirates or accidents, not a full military assault. "Order all civilians to emergency shelters. Contact the defense platforms. Tell them to prepare for combat. But even as she gave the orders, Sora knew it was hopeless. The orbital defense platforms were small automated stations with basic laser weapons. They were meant to destroy asteroids or disable small pirate ships. Against 15 massive alien warships, they would be useless. In orbit, Captain Lee was fighting to keep his ship together. The Soul's Pride had been built for patrol duty, not combat. Her weapons consisted of 2 small plasma cannons that could barely scratch the paint on one of the alien vessels. "Captain, I'm getting a transmission from the lead alien ship," Nam reported. "Put it through," Lee ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, translated by their computer systems. "Your expansion ends here." "This is Captain Lee Dongmin of the Human Colonial Defense Force," Lee replied. "This is a peaceful colony. We mean no harm to anyone. Please respond." The only answer was another energy beam that tore through the Soul's Pride's engine section. The ship began to tumble out of control. "Engine room is gone," Nam reported. "Life support is failing. We have maybe 10 minutes of air left." Lee looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were moving into bombardment positions above New Busan. Soon they would begin firing on the planet itself. "Send a message to Earth," Lee ordered. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them about these ships and their weapons. Make sure they know." Nam's fingers flew over her console. "Message sent, Captain. High priority, all frequencies." Lee nodded. It would take the message 3 years to reach Earth, but at least humanity would know what had destroyed New Busan Colony. The first orbital defense platform exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Then the second. The alien weapons were so powerful that each shot completely destroyed its target. Within minutes, all 6 platforms were gone. Down on the planet, the first energy beam struck the capital city. Sora watched in horror as entire city blocks vanished in flashes of white light. The alien weapons didn't just destroy buildings, they turned them into vapor. The heat was so intense that the very air caught fire. "All evacuation shuttles launch immediately," she ordered into her communicator. "Get as many people off-world as possible." But the evacuation had barely begun when alien fighters swooped down from the fleet. They were smaller than the main ships, but just as deadly. They targeted the evacuation shuttles with surgical precision, destroying them one by one as they tried to escape the planet's atmosphere. In the agricultural district, Kim Tae-ho was leading a group of civilians toward the underground storage complexes. The tunnels had been built to store grain and equipment, but they might provide shelter from the bombardment. "Stay together," he called out as they ran through the streets. Above them, the sky was full of fire as alien weapons struck the city. "The tunnels are just ahead." They reached the entrance to the underground complex just as an alien fighter screamed overhead. Tae-ho pushed the last civilians through the door and sealed it behind them. The complex was deep underground, built into solid rock. It might be safe. But the aliens had noticed the civilians fleeing underground. They began using different weapons, sonic devices that sent powerful sound waves through the rock itself. The tunnels began to collapse as the shock waves tore through the stone. Tae-ho heard the ceiling crack above him. "Everyone out!" he shouted. "The tunnels aren't safe." But it was too late. The roof came down with a roar of breaking stone, burying hundreds of people in seconds. At the communication center, Choi Mi-young was frantically trying to coordinate the colony's defense. But there was no defense against this kind of attack. The aliens weren't just trying to defeat New Busan, they were trying to erase it completely. "I'm getting readings on their weapons," her technician reported. "These aren't normal energy weapons. They're designed to destroy matter at the molecular level." Mi-young understood. The aliens weren't just killing people. They were making sure nothing would be left behind. No buildings, no crops, no trace that humans had ever been here. She began uploading everything she could to the emergency transmitters. Technical data about the alien weapons, recordings of their ships, tactical information that might help other human colonies if they faced the same attack. "This is New Busan Control making final transmission," she spoke into the recorder. "The colony is under attack by unknown alien forces. 15 large warships, superior technology. They're using molecular disruption weapons. If anyone receives this message, warn Earth. Tell them humanity is not alone in the galaxy, and not everyone out here is friendly." The communication center exploded in white fire before she could finish. Young Jae-sung was hiding with 30 other children in a grain storage silo outside the city. Their teacher, Ms. Lee, had brought them here when the attack began. The silo was made of thick metal and built into a hillside. It was the safest place she could think of. The children huddled together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of destruction outside. Explosions, screaming engines, the crackle of energy weapons, it sounded like the end of the world. "Why are they doing this?" whispered Minji, a girl from Jae-sung's class. "I don't know," Ms. Lee replied quietly. "But we're going to be brave and we're going to survive this." Through a small window, Jae-sung could see the city burning. The beautiful buildings where he had grown up were gone. The parks where he had played were craters of molten glass. Everything he had ever known was being destroyed. In orbit, Captain Lee's ship was dying. The Soul's Pride had lost all power except for emergency life support. The hull was breached in dozens of places, and they were slowly losing air. "Captain," Nam said weakly. She had been injured when a control panel exploded. "Long-range sensors are picking up a ship. Human design, a merchant vessel." Lee looked at the tactical display with failing eyes. The merchant ship Lucky Dragon was approaching from the outer system. They must have detected the attack and come to help. "Warn them off," Lee ordered. "Tell them to stay away and report what happened here to Earth." But even as he spoke, Lee knew it was too late for New Busan. The alien bombardment was systematic and thorough. They were destroying every farm, every building, every trace of human presence. In a few hours, there would be nothing left of the colony except cooling ashes. The Soul's Pride finally lost life support completely. Lee and Nam died holding hands, watching through the bridge windows as their world burned below them. The bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it was over, New Busan was a dead world. The aliens had used their weapons to crack the planet's crust in several places, ensuring that nothing would ever grow there again. 2.5 million humans were dead. The alien fleet departed as suddenly as it had arrived, leaving behind only a warning beacon. The message broadcast in multiple galactic languages. "This is the fate of species that expand beyond their natural limits. Let all witness and learn." The Lucky Dragon managed to rescue 847 survivors, including Jae-sung and the other children hiding in the grain silo. They were all that remained of humanity's greatest colony. As the merchant ship fled toward Earth with the survivors, the beacon continued its broadcast, warning the galaxy about the fate of species that dared to reach for the stars. But the aliens had made one mistake. The news reached Earth 6 months later, carried by the merchant ship Lucky Dragon. Captain Hong Gi-taek had pushed his engines beyond their safety limits to bring word of New Busan's destruction to humanity's homeworld. When his ship limped into lunar orbit, badly damaged from the desperate journey, he carried with him 847 survivors and a message that would change human history forever. Admiral Han Kyung-soo stood in the briefing room of Earth Defense Command, staring at the data that Captain Hong had brought. The tactical recordings from New Busan's final hours played on the main screen, showing the systematic destruction of humanity's most successful colony. Han's hands shook as he watched the alien weapons turn buildings into vapor and people into nothing. "Play it again," he said quietly. His aide, Commander Park Dae-hyun, hesitated. "Sir, we've watched it 12 times already." "Play it again," Han repeated. His brother had lived on New Busan. His brother's wife and 2 children had been farmers in the agricultural district. They were all dead now, turned to ash by weapons that humanity couldn't even understand. President Kang Yoo-jin entered the briefing room, followed by the emergency council. Her face was pale and drawn. She had not slept since the news arrived. "What do we know about these aliens?" Dr. Lim Hae-jin, head of Earth's Xenobiology Division, stepped forward with his report. "We're calling them the Keth, based on linguistic analysis of their warning message. The survivors describe beings about 2 meters tall, gray-skinned, with 4 arms and advanced technology far beyond our own." "How advanced?" President Kang asked. "Their weapons operate on principles we don't understand," Dr. Lim replied. "Molecular disruption technology that can turn solid matter into energy. Their ships use some kind of gravitational propulsion system, and their attack was perfectly coordinated across 15 vessels. That suggests either artificial intelligence or a hive mind." General Bae Sun-woo, head of Special Operations Command, was studying the tactical data. "This wasn't a battle," he said grimly. "This was an extermination. They didn't try to communicate. They didn't demand surrender. They just killed everyone." Admiral Han pulled up the star charts. "We need to find out where they came from." If they have one fleet this powerful, they might have others. We're working on that, Dr. Lim said. The survivors reported that the Keth called themselves gardeners of the galaxy. We think that means they see themselves as caretakers who decide which species are allowed to survive. President Kang felt sick. You mean they've done this before? We believe so. We're checking our records of species that have gone silent over the past few centuries. If the Keth have been systematically destroying civilizations, there should be patterns. 3 weeks later, Dr. Lim returned with results that shocked even the Emergency Council. We found evidence of 47 species that were completely wiped out over the past 1,000 years. All of them were expanding civilizations. All of them went silent within a matter of days. The council members sat in stunned silence. 47 entire species. Billions of intelligent beings all destroyed by the Keith Empire. They call it gardening. Dr. Lim continued. They eliminate any species they consider too aggressive or expansionist. According to the linguistic analysis, they believe they're maintaining galactic balance. Admiral Han stood up slowly. How big is their empire? Our best estimates suggest they control over 200 star systems, Dr. Lim replied. Population somewhere around 80 billion. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. So if we fight them conventionally, we lose, General Bay said. We don't just lose, Han replied. Humanity becomes extinct. President Kang looked around the room at her advisors. What are our options? We could try diplomacy, suggested Foreign Minister Yu In-sung. Perhaps if we promise to limit our expansion. They murdered 2.3 million civilians without even trying to talk, Han interrupted. They're not interested in diplomacy. We could evacuate, General Bay suggested reluctantly. Abandon the colonies, pull everyone back to Earth and the inner systems. Try to hide. For how long? President Kang asked. Until they decide Earth itself is too dangerous to leave alone. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that hiding was not a real solution. The Keth had been eliminating species for 1,000 years. Eventually, they would come for humanity's homeworld too. Professor Oh Yoonji had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now she spoke up. There might be another option. All eyes turned to the elderly physicist. She was old enough to remember the early days of human space travel, when Earth scientists had explored ideas that later generations considered too dangerous. In the early 2300s, there was a research project called Prometheus, she said slowly. It was classified above top secret and eventually shut down because the technology was considered too dangerous to develop. What kind of technology? President Kang asked. Professor Oh looked uncomfortable. Stellar manipulation. The theoretical ability to destabilize a star's nuclear fusion process and cause it to go supernova. The room erupted in shocked voices. Admiral Han held up his hand for silence. Professor, are you suggesting we could destroy an entire star system? The theory was sound, Oh replied. We would need to place specially designed antimatter charges at precise locations within a star's core. The charges would disrupt the delicate balance that keeps nuclear fusion stable. Instead of burning for billions of years, the star would explode within hours. Dr. Lim stared at her. That would kill everything in the system. Planets, space stations, everything. Yes, Oh said quietly. It would. How many Keth live in their home system? President Kang asked. Dr. Lim checked his files. Intelligence from the survivors suggests their capital system contains their homeworld, their central command, and the breeding facilities for their entire species. Probably 12 to 15 billion individuals. The room fell silent again. The mathematics were brutal but simple. The Keth had killed 2.3 million humans on New Busan. If humanity retaliated by destroying their home system, they would kill billions in return. We would become mass murderers. Foreign Minister Yu said quietly. We would become survivors, Admiral Han replied. President Kang stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth's blue oceans. Down there, 10 billion humans went about their daily lives unaware that their species faced extinction. They had children, made art, fell in love, built dreams for the future. All of that could end if the Keth decided humanity was too dangerous to live. Professor Oh, how long would it take to develop this weapon? The theoretical work is done, Oh replied. But building and deploying it would take at least 2 years. And it would require someone to pilot the delivery system directly into a star. It would be a one-way mission. And if we don't do this? President Kang asked. Admiral Han answered. Intelligence reports suggest the Keth are preparing to attack 3 more human colonies. They see our lack of immediate retaliation as proof that we're weak. If we don't respond, they'll keep killing us until there are no humans left in the galaxy. President Kang turned back to face the council. We need to vote. All in favor of developing Project Prometheus? 7 hands rose. 4 remained down. Motion carries, President Kang said. Her voice was steady, but her hand shook as she signed the authorization. God help us all. 2 days later, construction began on the most secret facility in human history. Deep beneath the Himalayas, thousands of scientists and engineers began working on a weapon that could kill a star. They knew that if they succeeded, humanity would never be the same. In the survivor camps on Luna, young Jae-sung stared out at the stars through the habitat's transparent dome. He was 15 now, one of the few witnesses to what the Keth had done to New Busan. Sometimes reporters came to interview the survivors, asking them to describe the attack. Jae-sung always told them the same thing. They didn't just kill people. They tried to erase us completely. They wanted to make sure no one would ever know we had been there. But humanity had not been erased, and now, in the depths of Earth's mountains, brilliant minds were working on making sure the galaxy would never forget what happened when someone tried to wipe out the human race. The Keth had made one critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that humanity would react like the other 47 species they had destroyed, with fear, confusion, and desperate attempts at defense. Instead, humanity was preparing to teach the galaxy a lesson about the price of genocide. The war was about to begin, and it would end with fire that burned brighter than any star. 2 years had passed since the authorization of Project Prometheus. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, in a facility that officially did not exist, Dr. Shin Woo-jin worked 18 hours a day on humanity's most terrible weapon. The laboratory was carved from solid rock, hidden so deep that even nuclear weapons could not touch it. Here, the brightest minds in human space gathered to solve an impossible problem: how to kill a star. The antimatter charges are ready, reported Chief Engineer Nam Ho-seok, wiping sweat from his forehead. The engineering challenges had been enormous. They needed to create antimatter devices that could survive the journey to a star's core, then detonate with precise timing to disrupt nuclear fusion. Dr. Shin looked up from his calculations. His hair had gone gray in the past 2 years, and his hands shook from too much coffee and too little sleep. What about the delivery system? That's the hard part, Nam replied. We need a ship that can dive into stellar plasma and survive long enough to deploy the charges. The heat and radiation would destroy any normal vessel in seconds. Show me the designs, Shin said. Nam activated the holographic display, showing a sleek ship unlike anything humanity had ever built. We call it the Silent Thunder. The hull is made from metamaterials that can bend sensor readings and withstand temperatures of over 10 million degrees. The pilot compartment is protected by layers of exotic matter that don't exist anywhere else in the universe. How exotic? Shin asked. Exotic enough that we had to build a particle accelerator just to create enough material for one ship, Nam replied grimly. And expensive enough that this single vessel cost more than Earth's entire defense fleet. Dr. Shin nodded. He understood the implications. Humanity was betting everything on this one mission. If it failed, there would be no second chance. Across the facility, Captain John Subin was briefing the mission planners on her intelligence gathering. For 18 months, she had used experimental stealth technology to infiltrate Keth space, gathering information about their empire and their capabilities. The Keth capital system is called Vorth Prime, she reported to the assembled team. It contains 9 planets, 47 orbital stations, and their entire central command structure. Most importantly, it houses their breeding facilities. Commander Ro Da-yoon, the pilot selected for the mission, studied the tactical data. How many Keth live in the system? Our best estimate is 12 billion, John replied. But it's not just the numbers that matter. If we destroy Vorth Prime, we eliminate their entire command structure and their ability to reproduce. Without the breeding facilities, the Keth Empire will collapse within a generation. Assuming we can actually destroy the star, Ro said quietly. The physics work, Dr. Shin assured her. We've run the calculations thousands of times. If we can place the antimatter charges at the correct positions within the star's core, the fusion process will destabilize completely. The star will go supernova within 16 hours. Ro nodded, but her expression remained grim. Everyone in the room knew this was a suicide mission. The silent thunder could survive the trip into the star's core, but it could never escape the explosion that followed. In another part of the facility, Chief Medical Officer Song Ji-woo was struggling with the moral implications of their work. "We're talking about killing 12 billion sentient beings," she said to Dr. Shin during one of their private meetings. "How are we any better than the Keth?" Shin looked tired. This question had haunted him for 2 years. The Keth have systematically exterminated 47 species. They killed 2.3 million civilians on New Busan without even trying to communicate. They see genocide as gardening. "But if we do this, we become genocidal too," Song insisted. "Maybe," Shin replied. "But if we don't do this, humanity becomes extinct. And then who will remember the 47 species the Keth destroyed? Who will mourn for New Busan?" The moral debates continued throughout the facility. Some scientists requested transfers to other projects, unable to continue working on a weapon of such devastating power. Others, like survivor liaison Park Jae-min, who had escaped from New Busan aboard the Lucky Dragon, reminded everyone of what was at stake. "I watched them murder children," Jae-min said during one heated discussion. "They didn't give those children a choice. They didn't offer mercy or negotiation. They just killed them all." As the project neared completion, intelligence reports arrived that made the moral debates academic. The Keth were preparing to attack 3 more human colonies. Long-range scouts had detected Keth fleets moving toward Harmony Station, New Geneva, and Port Arthur. Each colony housed over 1 million people. "They're accelerating their extermination campaign," Admiral Han reported during a secure transmission from Earth Defense Command. "Our lack of retaliation has convinced them that humanity is weak. They plan to wipe out our entire colonial network within the next year." Dr. Shin closed his eyes. The decision had been made for them. Project Prometheus was no longer about revenge, it was about survival. The final months were spent on mission planning. Commander Ro spent countless hours in simulators, learning to pilot a ship through the crushing gravity and intense radiation of a star's interior. The Silent Thunder's exotic matter hull could protect her, but the navigation would require skills no human pilot had ever needed before. "Remember," Dr. Shin told her during their final briefing, "you need to place the charges at specific coordinates within the star's core. Too shallow and the fusion process won't destabilize. Too deep, and the charges will be crushed before they can detonate." "I understand," Ro replied. She had volunteered for this mission knowing she would never return to Earth. Her family had died on New Busan. For her, this was justice. Captain John provided the intelligence for the infiltration route. The Keth have patrol networks throughout their space, but they don't expect anyone to be crazy enough to approach their capital system. If you follow this route and maintain radio silence, you should be able to reach Fourth Prime undetected. Technician An Min-ho ran final diagnostics on the antimatter charges. "The devices are stable," he reported. "They're designed to activate automatically when exposed to the specific conditions found in a star's core. You won't need to arm them manually." "What if something goes wrong?" Ro asked. "Then 12 billion Keth continue their genocide across the galaxy," An replied bluntly, "and humanity joins the 47 species they've already exterminated." 3 years after New Busan's destruction, the Silent Thunder launched from a hidden facility in the Kuiper Belt. The ship was invisible to conventional sensors, its metamaterial hull bending electromagnetic radiation around it, like water flowing around a stone. Commander Ro sat alone in the pilot's chair, watching the stars slide past as her ship accelerated toward its target. The journey to Fourth Prime would take 4 months of careful navigation through Keth space. 4 months to think about what she was about to do. Behind her in the cargo bay, 12 antimatter charges waited in their protective containers. Each one contained enough destructive power to level a city. Together they would tear apart the heart of a star. As Earth fell behind, Ro thought about the children of New Busan, young Jae-sung and his classmates, hiding in terror as alien weapons destroyed everything they had ever known. Those children deserved justice. They deserved to know that their deaths had meaning. For New Busan, she whispered into the darkness of space. For humanity. For all the species that never got the chance to fight back. The Silent Thunder disappeared into the void, carrying death toward the heart of the Keth Empire. In 4 months, the galaxy would learn what happened when someone tried to exterminate the human race. The Keth had spent 1,000 years believing they were the ultimate gardeners of the galaxy, pruning away species they considered dangerous or troublesome. Soon they would discover what it felt like to be pruned in return. 4 months after leaving Earth, Commander Ro Da-Yun reached the edge of the Vorth Prime system. Through the Silent Thunder's sensors, she could see the heart of the Keth Empire spread out before her. 9 planets orbited the massive orange star, each one covered with cities and industrial complexes. Orbital stations hung in space like metallic flowers, connected by streams of traffic that never stopped moving. 12 billion Keth lived here, going about their daily lives with no idea that death was approaching. Ro felt no satisfaction as she studied the enemy's home. These beings had murdered 2.3 million humans on New Busan without mercy or hesitation. They had systematically exterminated 47 other species across 1,000 years. But seeing their civilization up close, watching their ships and cities function with such complex beauty, she understood the weight of what she was about to do. One transmission to Earth, she said to herself, activating the quantum communicator for the last time. For the record, the message would take 47 years to reach home, traveling at the speed of light across the vast emptiness between stars. But someone needed to know what happened here. This is Commander Ro Da-Yun aboard the Silent Thunder. I have reached Vorth Prime, and am beginning final approach to the target star. The Keth capital system is impressive. Massive cities, orbital habitats, millions of ships. They've built something beautiful here. She paused, watching a group of Keth children playing in a park on one of the orbital stations. They looked so much like human children, running and laughing despite their alien appearance. I want everyone back home to understand what we're doing here. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about survival. The Keth see genocide as gardening, removing species they consider weeds. They've been doing it for 1,000 years, and they'll keep doing it until someone stops them. A Keth patrol ship passed close to her position, but the Silent Thunder's stealth systems worked perfectly. The metamaterial hull bent sensor readings around the ship, making it invisible to detection. The antimatter charges are armed and ready. Dr. Shin's calculations show that deployment at the star's core will cause supernova within 16 hours. That should give me enough time to reach minimum safe distance before... She didn't finish the sentence. There was no safe distance from a supernova. Ro began her approach to the star itself. The Silent Thunder's exotic matter hull started to glow as it encountered the outer edges of the stellar atmosphere. Temperature readings climbed into the millions of degrees, but the ship's protection held. Beginning penetration of stellar photosphere, she reported to her ship's computer, which would record everything for analysis by future historians. Hull temperature at 15 million degrees and rising. Exotic matter containment holding steady. The journey into the star's heart was like diving into hell. Outside the ship's protective field, nuclear fire raged with intensity beyond human comprehension. Plasma streams that could destroy planets flowed around the Silent Thunder like glowing rivers. Deeper she went, following Dr. Shin's precisely calculated course toward the stellar core. The gravity here was crushing, trying to tear her ship apart atom by atom, but the exotic matter hull held, protecting its fragile human cargo as she dove toward the heart of the enemy's sun. Approaching target depth, Ro announced. Gravity at 50,000 times Earth normal. Hull stress at maximum tolerances but holding. Through her sensors, she could see the star's core ahead, a region where hydrogen nuclei fused together with such violence that it powered an entire solar system. This was where she would plant humanity's revenge. Deploying antimatter charges now, the 12 devices launched from the Silent Thunder's cargo bay, each one following a carefully calculated trajectory to specific points within the stellar core. They were small, no bigger than suitcases, but each contained enough antimatter to destabilize the delicate balance that kept nuclear fusion stable. All charges deployed successfully, Ro reported, beginning withdrawal to minimum observation distance. But as she tried to pull away from the star's core, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. The intense gravity and radiation had damaged her engines. The Silent Thunder was trapped in the star's heart, unable to escape. Engine failure, she said calmly into her recorder. Looks like I won't be observing the supernova from a distance after all. Ro sat back in her pilot's chair and waited. According to Dr. Shin's calculations, the antimatter charges would detonate in exactly 37 minutes. The chain reaction would take another 16 hours to tear the star apart completely. She thought about Earth, 47 light-years away. Her message would reach home decades after she was dead, but at least humanity would know what she had accomplished here. The Keth Empire would be headless, their breeding facilities destroyed, their command structure eliminated. Personal log, final entry, she said quietly. I grew up on New Busan. I was a child when the first crops were planted in soil that had never known life. I watched that world become a paradise where humans and aliens could trade and learn from each other. The antimatter charges detonated deep in the star's core, invisible to conventional sensors but immediately noticeable on the Silent Thunder's instruments. The nuclear fusion process began to destabilize exactly as Dr. Shin had predicted. The Keth destroyed that paradise in 6 hours. They murdered everyone I ever loved, everyone I grew up with. They called it gardening. Rose smiled grimly as she watched the star's core begin to collapse. Well, now it's our turn to do some gardening. The stellar collapse accelerated rapidly. Fusion reactions that should have burned steadily for billions of years were running wild, consuming the star's fuel at an incredible rate. In less than 16 hours, Vorth Prime's sun would explode with the force of 10 billion hydrogen bombs. For New Busan, Ro whispered, as the star's fire consumed her ship. For humanity. For all the species that never got the chance to fight back. The Silent Thunder vanished into nuclear fire, but its mission was complete. 16 hours later, Vorth Prime went supernova. The explosion was visible from neighboring star systems as a new star suddenly appeared in their skies. Keth colonies throughout the galaxy watched in horror as their homeworld's sun died in an eruption of light that outshone entire galaxies. Fleet Admiral Vorth Kai was in the capital city when the stellar collapse began. The Keth Empire's greatest military leader had just received reports that 3 more human colonies were ready for extermination. He was planning the final phase of humanity's destruction when his scientists detected impossible readings from their own sun. The star is destabilizing, his chief physicist reported in panic. Nuclear fusion is collapsing throughout the core. We have perhaps 12 hours before supernova. Vorth Kai stared at the readings in disbelief. How is this possible? Unknown, Admiral. But the process cannot be stopped. We must evacuate immediately, but evacuation was impossible. 12 billion Keth lived in the Vorth Prime system, spread across 9 planets and dozens of orbital stations. Even with their entire fleet working at maximum capacity, they could never move everyone to safety in 12 hours. As the truth became clear, Vorth Kai composed a final message to be transmitted toward human space. We underestimated you, he admitted. We thought you were weak because you took time to respond. We were wrong. Your species learns. The transmission ended as Vorth Prime's sun exploded. The shockwave destroyed everything in the system. Planets, space stations, fleets, and 12 billion Keth who had never imagined that their victims might someday strike back. The explosion was so powerful that its light would be visible from Earth in 47 years. A delayed celebration of humanity's terrible victory. News of the supernova spread across the galaxy within months. Every species that had ever heard of the Keth Empire watched in amazement as their most powerful enemies simply vanished from existence. The mysterious gardeners who had pruned the galaxy for 1,000 years were gone, erased by a force they had never understood. On Earth, the news arrived 3 years later, carried by long-range sensors that detected the supernova's light. President Kang, now older and marked by the weight of her decisions, addressed humanity from the same room where Project Prometheus had been authorized. The mission was successful, she announced to a world that barely remembered the authorization. The Keth Empire's capital system has been destroyed. Their threat to humanity is ended, but the celebrations were quiet. Humanity had saved itself, but at a cost that would echo through history. They had become the first species to deliberately destroy a star, killing billions of sentient beings in the process. In the survivor camps on Luna, Jae-sung, now a young man studying to become a colonial engineer, watched the announcement with mixed feelings. Justice had been served for New Busan, but it was a justice written in fire across the cosmos. Did we become monsters? He asked his old teacher, Ms. Lee, who had survived the grain silo with him. I don't know, she replied honestly, but we survived. And sometimes, in a galaxy full of predators, survival requires becoming something terrible. The Keth Empire collapsed within months of losing Vorth Prime. Without their central command and breeding facilities, the remaining Keith colonies fragmented into civil war or surrendered to neighboring powers.